Big Chinese chains are expanding across Canada. Cheap labor claims are everywhere, and kitchens feel shaky. Tonight, we cut through the noise with data. Who's actually losing work? Canada's dining scene is shifting because of costs, new service models, and expansion by Canadian, US, and Chinese brands, not one villain. We'll separate expansion from displacement, show how student hour caps and tighter TFWP rules shape schedules, and explain why payrolls can dip even as vacancies stay high. Stick around. By the end, you'll know what protects workers. 1. What cheap labor actually means in Canada. When Canadians say cheap labor in the restaurant context, they usually point to two channels: international students working part-time and temporary foreign workers hired under the TFWP. These are legal frameworks with caps, wages and audits, not free-for-alls. First, international students. Since November 8, 2024, most eligible students can work up to 24 hours a week off campus while classes are in session. That's a hard cap, not unlimited hours, and it replaced the emergency pandemic era measure. Schools and students still have to meet eligibility rules. Second, the TFWP has low-wage and high-wage streams. Ottawa tightened the low-wage side in 2024-2025, cutting workforce caps for many sectors to 10%, some to 20%, and limiting approvals in high unemployment regions, plus shorter permit durations. These steps were designed to reduce dependence on low-wage temp labor. On the high-wage stream, a major change landed. To apply for a high-wage LMIA after November 8, 2024, the offered wage must be at least 20% above the provincial median, raising employer costs if they want to use the high-wage route. That's the opposite of cheap. Enforcement matters too. ESDC guidance stresses that employers must pay the prevailing wage and reassess annually using job bank updates. Penalties and bans exist for violators. Again, these are controlled channels, not loopholes. Put simply, cheap labor is a political phrase. The legal reality is caps, wage floors and audits. Misuse exists, and it should be punished, but the rulebook is tighter today than in 2022 to 2023. The takeaway: policy shifted toward less low-wage reliance and higher wage thresholds, which reshapes scheduling and hiring across the board. Chinese chains, Canadian chains, and independents alike. 2. Are Chinese chains really expanding in Canada? Yes, some well-known Chinese brands have expanded, often in major metros. Haidilao launched its first Canadian location in Richmond, BC in December 2018, with subsequent openings in Greater Vancouver and beyond. That presence is visible in malls and busy corridors where foot traffic is strong. Another example is Liu Yishu Hotpot, which lists Canadian locations across Toronto, Vancouver, Ottawa, Edmonton and Montreal, among others in North America. These are not one-offs. They're multi-unit plays tailored to dense immigrant and foodie neighborhoods where Hotpot resonates. Why this format now? Hotpot's high throughput, standardized service can scale, centralized prep, repeatable menus, consistent equipment. That allows faster site launches in landlord-friendly plazas that prefer strong covenants and proven brands. Crucially, Chinese chains are one slice of a broader chain wave. Canadian and US brands also expanded in 2023 as financing thawed and landlords sought reliable tenants to place pandemic casualties. Seeing only the Chinese logos misses the forest for the trees. For communities, the openings can feel like a takeover when multiple storefronts flip in a short window. In reality, it often reflects landlords leasing to credit-worthy operators after independent closures, not a nationality-based displacement policy. We should also note consumer demand. Canada's appetite for Asian cuisines has soared. Hotpot and bubble tea are mainstream. Where demand is strong and rents are high, scale wins more leases, regardless of origin. Bottom line, yes, Chinese chains expanded. No, they are not the sole driver of change. Scale, financing and consumer tastes power the trend. 3. Chains versus independence. The post-pandemic shakeout. The hard truth, many independents never recovered. Restaurants Canada reported record pressure, with 62% of operators at a loss, or barely breaking even heading into 2024, and bankruptcies jumping sharply in 2023. That's the opening chains needed to take space. Meanwhile, Technomic found Canada's top 200 chains grew sales plus 9.7% to 44 blows in 2023 and expanded units plus 2.8%, the biggest increase since 2016. Scale begets more scale, better supplier pricing, marketing muscle, and access to capital to refresh sites. When a mom and pop closes, local jobs vanish instantly. When a chain backfills, jobs return but with different role mixes. More standardized station work, fewer specialized prep hours, sometimes leaner FOH staffing thanks to QR menus or tableside tech. So job counts can rebound, but job quality and schedules may shift. Workers experience this as instability. Hours moving, wages flattening, split shifts growing, even when a new operator hires. This is not unique to Chinese brands, it's how chainification works. The logo could be Canadian, American, or Chinese. The hiring logic follows the same spreadsheet. Consumers add pressure by trading down, value menus, combos, off-peak promos. That steers traffic toward the brand's best at yield management. Again, usually larger chains. Net effect, chains up, independents down. That's a structure story, not a nationality story. 4. Jobs picture. Vacancies versus payroll. Here's the paradox. Canada still shows elevated vacancies in accommodation and AMP. Food services, while payroll employment fell at several points in 2025 as weaker sites closed. Stats Can reports payroll employment in A&AMP.fs down by 1.6% year-over-year in March 2025, and further monthly declines in April 2025, 5,800. At the same time, national job vacancies hovered around £5,000 and £1,000 in April before falling to £478,000 in May, the lowest since 2017. It's a moving target. Seats vanish in one block while roles sit open in another, often with mismatched hours, locations, or skills. In restaurants, a vacancy can be real but unattractive. Late nights, split shifts, weekend heavy, or posted below the going local rate. Workers may decline those offers, which keeps the vacancy metric high. Closures skew the map too. If 5 independents in one strip shutter and a single large unit opens elsewhere, neighborhood jobs shrink even if citywide headcount later recovers under a chain. Recruitment patterns also changed. More operators emphasize flexible part-time lines over full-time blocks to hedge demand volatility. That keeps payroll lean, but frustrates workers chasing stable hours. All of this fuels the perception of job theft when the underlying mechanics are costs, scheduling, and site churn. Takeaway: the labor market is fragmented, not stolen in bulk by any one group. 5. What the law actually allows. Students and AMP, TFWP. International students. The rule today is 24 hours week off campus during classes, effective Novate 2024. That limit directly caps how much of any schedule can be staffed by students, period. Low-wage TFWP. Ottawa tightened screws. Most sectors now face 10% low-wage caps, some 20%, with added limits in high unemployment areas and shorter permit durations. Those constraints deliberately curb reliance on low-wage temp staffing. High-wage TFWP. From Nov 8, 2024, employers must offer 20% above the provincial median wage just to apply for a high-wage LMIA, lifting the cost floor for that channel. Prevailing wage compliance. ESDC requires paying at least the prevailing wage and rechecking annually as job bank updates. Non-compliance risks, penalties and bans, costly for any operator, chain or indie. Policy trajectory. In 2024-2025, Ottawa repeatedly signaled it would reduce the temporary resident share, including workers and students, and tighten program use. That's the backdrop to today's hiring reality. So, regardless of logo or nationality, restaurants face narrower low-wage channels and higher wage thresholds in high-wage streams, conditions that don't align with the idea of endless cheap labor. Bottom line, the rulebook constrains cheap labor models more than it enables them. 6. Are Canadians losing jobs, or are jobs shifting? When an independent shutters, those jobs vanish, often permanently at that address. When a chain replaces it, jobs return, but the mix changes. Leaner FOH, standardized BOH and tech support can mean fewer total hours than before. At the city level, a wave of closures in one district and openings in another can leave pockets of unemployment even as total employment stabilizes. Workers without cars or childcare flexibility may not be able to chase those new shifts across town. Scheduling practices matter. Part-time stacking, 2 or 3 short shifts across the week, lets operators match demand, but makes it harder for workers to reach full-time incomes. That underemployment feels like displacement even if a headcount exists. Wage floors, tips and non-wage perks, meals, transit help, influence acceptance. A posted rate that sits below the going neighborhood wage will linger unfilled. Raise it and the labor shortage often melts. Nationality isn't a lever here, scale is. Scaled brands, including some from China, run tight playbooks that squeeze hours per cover. That's an efficiency story, not a nationality story. So are Canadians losing jobs to Chinese chains? The evidence points more to consolidation and model shifts, jobs moving between employers and formats, than a nationality-driven displacement. The fix lives in better wages, steadier schedules, and support for viable independence, not in blaming any one community. 7. Mini case studies, service models and AMP, staffing hotpot format, standardized broths, centralized prep, and table cooking reduce kitchen specialization. Fewer line cooks, more runners and hosts. Net hours can be lower than a scratch kitchen bistro per cover, even if sales are higher. Bubble tea and AMP, dessert chains, high throughput with limited food handling means small teams and heavy franchise systemization. 2 workers can move a surprising number of orders at peak. Fast casual versus full service, kiosks, QR menus and expo windows cut FOH hours dramatically. If an indie full-service spot flips to a fast casual chain, you can lose server roles even if total revenue rises. Supply economics. Chains sign national vendor contracts and handle logistics centrally. That shaves prep time on site. The saved minutes add up across the week into fewer paid hours. Real estate. Landlords under pressure prefer covenant-strong tenants. Chains, Canadian, US, Chinese, win bids more often, not because of nationality, but because of balance sheets. Training. Chains can slot new hires through modules fast and manage turnover. Independents struggle to afford structured training, which affects consistency and margins. Outcome: workers feel churn as roles morph and schedules compress. Another reason it feels like jobs are taken, even when the driver is format efficiency. 8. What would actually protect Canadian workers? Enforce the rules already on the books: prevailing wage, LMIA conditions, student hour caps, and publicize penalties. Bad actors, of any origin, undercut everyone. Visible enforcement deters copycats. Transparent postings, real wage bands, shift windows, location, reduce mismatch. When candidates know the deal up front, acceptance and retention improve, vacancies drop, and rumors cool. Stabilize schedules with minimum weekly hours where feasible. Predictability is currency. It keeps parents and students in the workforce and reduces churn that looks like shortages. Invest in training, apprenticeships, knife skills, safe serve and leadership tracks, so productivity rises with pay. Public co-funding can help independents compete with chain onboarding. Independent relief, patio and AMP, permitting reform, payment fee caps, and small business credit support keep local ownership viable. When indies survive, neighborhood jobs diversify. Data transparency, publish TFWP usage and enforcement by NAICS, CMA, plus vacancy and wage dashboards. Replace speculation with sunlight. Consistency, policy whiplash hurts both workers and owners. Clear multi-year pathways on wages, caps and student hours let everyone plan. Less panic, more stability. We've seen the logos and heard the headlines, but the driver isn't a flag, it's scale, costs and rules. Chinese brands are one part of a chain wave sweeping Canada alongside Canadian and US groups in a market where landlords want certainty and diners want value. The rulebook in 2024 to 2025 made low-wage channels tighter and high-wage LMIAs more expensive, not cheaper. That undercuts the unlimited cheap labor narrative. Enforcement, not scapegoating, is how we protect workers and level the field. If you want a Canada where hospitality jobs are good jobs, let's push for transparent postings, predictable schedules, skills pipelines, and real support for independence. That's how we keep neighborhood kitchens alive. Your turn. Comment one policy you'd enact tomorrow to protect Canadian kitchen workers without freezing growth. If you learned something new, like this video so it reaches more Canadians. Subscribe for weekly data-driven breakdowns on jobs, wages, and the real forces changing our streets. Let's build solutions, not echo chambers.